The pottery wheel spun beneath Sarah's hands, clay slipping through her fingers like water. She'd been at it for 3 hours and every piece had collapsed shapeless, ruined, wrong. The studio's fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows across the work tables scattered with her failures. "Damn it," she whispered. Watching another vase crumple inward, it was past 11 on a Thursday night. Sarah had the community arts center to herself, which was exactly how she wanted it. During the day, the studio filled with cheerful retirees and enthusiastic beginners who actually managed to create recognizable objects. She couldn't bear their sympathetic glances anymore, their gentle suggestions that maybe she was pressing too hard. She was pressing too hard. She knew that, but she couldn't seem to stop. The door chimed and Sarah's head snapped up. A woman stood in the entrance, rain dripping from her dark hair onto the linoleum. She wore paint-stained overalls and carried a large portfolio case, looking equally surprised to find someone else there. "Oh," the woman said. "I didn't think anyone would be here this late." "I didn't either," Sarah replied. Her hands still covered in wet clay. The woman stepped inside, setting down her portfolio. "I'm Ava. I teach the watercolor class on weekends, but I left some paintings drying in the back room. I was just going to grab them before the storm gets worse." "Sarah." She gestured vaguely at the wheel. "I'm trying to make a bowl." Ava moved closer, studying the collapsed clay with an artist's critical eye. "How long have you been at it tonight?" 3 hours. "Give or take? And before tonight?" Sarah hesitated. 6 months. 3 times a week. Something shifted in Ava's expression, not pity, but recognition. "Let me guess. You signed up thinking it would be relaxing, therapeutic, a way to quiet your mind. My therapist suggested it, actually." Sarah laughed bitterly. She said I needed a hobby that wasn't about perfection or achievement. Something just for me. And instead, you're white-knuckling your way through pottery like it's a corporate presentation. The accuracy stung. Sarah pulled her hands from the clay, reaching for a towel. "It's supposed to get easier." "Everyone says it gets easier." "It does," Ava said gently. "But not if you're fighting yourself the whole time." Outside, thunder rumbled. The lights flickered once, twice, then died completely. The studio plunged into darkness, save for the pale glow of streetlights filtering through rain-streaked windows. "Perfect," Sarah muttered. She heard Ava moving in the darkness. Then the soft click of a lighter. Warm light bloomed as Ava lit several candles kept for emergencies, placing them around the studio. In the gentler illumination, Sarah could see her more clearly: high cheekbones, kind eyes, and easy grace in the way she moved. "The building's backup generator is broken," Ava explained. "Has been for weeks. We could leave, or—" She glanced at Sarah's destroyed pottery. "I could show you something different." "What do you mean?" Ava retrieved her portfolio, pulling out a large sheet of watercolor paper and a set of paints. "Sometimes when we can't make something work one way, we need to try another medium entirely." "Have you ever painted?" "Not since elementary school." "Good. No bad habits to unlearn." Ava set up 2 workstations at one of the tables, filling jars with water from the sink. "Come on, the power's out." "No one can see us fail." "It's perfect." Sarah abandoned the pottery wheel, drawn by something in Ava's voice, an invitation, but also a challenge. She sat down and Ava placed a brush in her hand. "Don't think," Ava instructed. "Just let the brush move. That's impossible. Try anyway." Sarah dipped the brush in water, then painted deep blue that reminded her of twilight. She touched it to the paper and the color bloomed outward, bleeding into the white space. It was nothing like the pottery wheel's resistance. The paint moved freely, unpredictably, creating patterns she hadn't intended. "It's not doing what I want," Sarah said. "I know. Isn't it wonderful?" Ava was painting too, her brush dancing across the paper with confident strokes. Sarah watched, mesmerized. As a landscape emerged abstract, emotional, something that felt like the storm outside translated into color and form. "You're really talented," Sarah said softly. "I've been painting for 20 years. You should see what I was making on day 1. Ava smiled. "The secret is that I still make terrible paintings. I just make them faster now so I can get to the good ones." Sarah looked down at her own paper. The blue had spread into irregular patterns, pooling and fading. It looked like water. Like sadness. Like something breaking open. Tell me about the therapist, Ava said, not looking up from her work. Why pottery? The question should have felt intrusive, but something about the candlelight and rain and late hour made Sarah want to answer honestly. I had a breakdown 6 months ago. At work. I was a senior partner at a consulting firm and I just stopped. Couldn't get out of bed. Couldn't answer emails. Couldn't pretend anymore that I was okay with the life I'd built. And you're not? Okay with it? I don't know. I worked so hard to get there. 12-hour days, weekends, sacrificing everything. And then I arrived and it was just empty. She added more paint to her paper, darker blue now. The pottery was supposed to teach me how to be present. How to create something with my hands instead of just numbers and spreadsheets. But you're approaching it the same way you approached work, apparently. Ava set down her brush, turning to face Sarah fully. In the candlelight, her features were softer, more intimate. Can I tell you something? I had a breakdown too. 8 years ago. I was married to someone who loved the idea of an artist wife but hated the reality of it. The mess, the uncertainty, the fact that I couldn't just paint pretty flowers on command. What happened? I left, moved across the country, started over. Started teaching instead of just making art for galleries. And I learned that sometimes breaking is the only way to find out who you really are when you put yourself back together. Sarah's hand had stopped moving. She was staring at Ava, at the vulnerability in her eyes, the way she spoke about pain with such clarity. Do you regret it? The breaking? Not for a second. Thunder cracked overhead, louder now. The rain intensified, hammering against the windows. Sarah realized she didn't want to leave, didn't want this strange, suspended moment to end. Keep painting, Ava said softly. Don't think about what it should look like. Think about what you feel. Sarah picked up her brush again. She mixed colors without planning, blues into grays, grays into purples. She painted the weight in her chest, the exhaustion, the fear that she'd wasted years building a life she didn't want. But also something else. Something stirring to life in the wreckage. They painted in silence for a while, the only sounds the rain and their brushes against paper. Sarah lost track of time, lost herself in the rhythm of water and pigment. When she finally looked up, Ava was watching her. What? Sarah asked. You're smiling. Sarah touched her face, surprised to find it was true. I am. That's what it feels like when you stop fighting. Ava stood, moving to stand behind Sarah's chair. She leaned over, close enough that Sarah could smell her perfume, something earthy and warm. May I? Sarah nodded, not quite sure what she was agreeing to. Ava guided her hand, adding water to the edge of the painting, showing her how to create soft transitions between colors. Her touch was gentle, professional, but Sarah's heart was racing. You're creating something beautiful, Ava murmured near her ear. Can you see it? Sarah looked at the painting, truly looked. It wasn't what she'd intended. It wasn't controlled or perfect. But Ava was right. There was something beautiful in its messiness, something honest. I see it, she whispered. Ava's hand was still on hers. Neither of them moved. The moment stretched, charged with something Sarah couldn't name or maybe didn't want to name. Not yet. Finally, Ava stepped back. I should get those paintings. The ones I came for. Right, of course. But Ava didn't move toward the back room. Instead, she sat down again, picking up her brush. Or I could stay a little longer. Keep you company until the storm passes. I'd like that. They painted until midnight, until the candles burned low and the rain softened to a drizzle. They talked about art and fear and the courage it takes to start over. Ava told stories about her students, about teaching elderly men to see color differently, about watching teenagers discover they could create beauty. Sarah found herself laughing, really laughing. For the first time in months, when the power suddenly flickered back on, they both winced at the harsh fluorescent glare. I should go, Sarah said reluctantly. Me too. They cleaned up together, washing brushes and sealing paint jars. Sarah carefully rolled her watercolor painting, handling it like something precious. At the door, Ava paused. Will you come back? To the studio? For pottery? For whatever you want, or... Ava hesitated, then seemed to decide something. There's a gallery opening on Saturday. My work is being shown. It's just a small local place, but if you wanted to come. Sarah's heart fluttered. I'd love to. Ava smiled and it transformed her whole face. 7 o'clock. The Riverside Gallery on Main Street. I'll be there. They stood there for a moment longer, neither quite wanting to leave. Finally, Ava reached out and squeezed Sarah's hand. I'm glad you were breaking tonight. Me too. Sarah drove home through empty streets, her painting carefully secured in the passenger seat. The rain had stopped and stars were beginning to emerge between the clouds. She felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Anticipation. Hope. The fragile beginning of something new. Saturday arrived wrapped in golden autumn light. Sarah changed outfits 3 times before settling on dark jeans and a silk blouse, casual but elegant. Like she wasn't trying too hard, even though she absolutely was. She arrived at the Riverside Gallery at exactly 7, then sat in her car for 5 minutes, convincing herself to go inside. The gallery was intimate. Brick walls hung with paintings that glowed under carefully positioned track lighting. A small crowd mingled with wine glasses, their conversations creating a pleasant hum. Sarah spotted Ava immediately, standing beside one of her paintings. Talking animatedly with an older couple, Ava wore a green dress that brought out the warmth in her dark eyes. Her hair swept up in a casual twist. She looked confident, radiant, completely in her element. Sarah felt her breath catch, then Ava saw her. Her whole face lit up, and she excused herself from the conversation, weaving through the crowd. You came, Ava said, and there was genuine relief in her voice. Of course I came. I wasn't sure. I thought maybe you'd think it was too forward of me to invite you, or Ava. Sarah touched her arm gently. I wanted to be here. Ava's smile turned softer, more intimate. Come on. Let me show you around. She guided Sarah through the gallery, explaining each painting, the inspiration, the technique, the story behind it. Her work was stunning, abstract landscapes that captured emotion more than place. There were stormy seascapes and quiet forests, cities at twilight and deserts at dawn. This one, Ava stopped for a large canvas dominated by blues and purples. I painted this the week after I left my marriage. I called it Breaking Free. Sarah studied it, seeing the chaos and pain in the violent brushstrokes, but also something else, a lightness emerging at the edges, like hope creeping in. It's incredible, she said. They're all incredible. Ava, you're so talented. Thank you. Ava looked genuinely touched. That means a lot, especially coming from you. From me? I'm nobody. I just push paper around and make spreadsheets. You're someone who's brave enough to admit when something isn't working. Someone who shows up at 11 at night to try again. That's not nobody. Before Sarah could respond, someone called Ava's name. The gallery owner, wanting to introduce her to a potential buyer. Ava squeezed Sarah's hand apologetically. I have to do the artist thing for a bit. But stay, please? We can grab dinner after. I'll stay. Sarah wandered the gallery alone, nursing a glass of wine, studying Ava's paintings with new eyes. She could see the journey in them, the pain and transformation, the breaking and rebuilding. She wondered what her own journey would look like if she could paint it. Beautiful work, isn't it? A woman beside her said. She was probably in her 50s, elegant in a black pantsuit. Stunning, Sarah agreed. I bought 3 pieces last year. She's going to be famous someday, mark my words. Right now, she's still affordable. The woman smiled. I'm Margaret Chun. I own this gallery. Sarah Mitchell. I'm a friend of Ava's. Something knowing flickered in Margaret's eyes. How lovely. Ava deserves someone who appreciates her work. Her ex-husband certainly never did. Sarah wasn't sure how to respond to that. I'm just here to support her, of course. Margaret's smile widened. Well, if you're interested in purchasing anything, let me know. Though I have a feeling you're more interested in the artist than the art. She walked away before Sarah could protest, leaving her flustered and wondering if it was that obvious. Was it obvious? What was it exactly? Sarah had never questioned her sexuality. She dated men throughout college and her 20s, had even been engaged once, though it ended when he'd accepted a job in Singapore and expected her to follow. She'd assumed she was straight because, well, why wouldn't she be? But standing in this gallery, watching Ava move through the crowd with such grace and passion, Sarah felt something she'd never quite felt before. It was more than admiration, more than friendship. It was desire, plain and simple, and it terrified her. The gallery crowd began to thin as the evening wore on. Ava finally extracted herself from the last cluster of admirers, making her way back to Sarah with visible relief. "Sorry that took so long. I sold 4 paintings tonight, which is amazing. But everyone wants to talk about the process and the inspiration and—" She stopped, studying Sarah's face. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine. Just thinking. About how proud I am of you. This is your night. You should be celebrating." Ava's expression softened. "I'd rather celebrate with you. Are you hungry?" They walked to a small Italian restaurant 2 blocks away, the autumn air crisp and clean. The restaurant was warm and dimly lit with red checkered tablecloths and candles and wine bottles. They ordered pasta and a bottle of Chianti, falling easily into conversation. "Tell me about your life before the breakdown," Ava said. "Who was Sarah the consultant?" Sarah grimaced. She was driven, ambitious. She worked 80-hour weeks and thought that made her valuable. She dated occasionally, but never seriously because she didn't have time for serious. She believed that success was the only thing that mattered. And now? Now she's not sure who she is. The company was very understanding about my leave of absence. Too understanding. I think they know I'm not coming back. Are you? Sarah swirled wine in her glass. I don't think so. Every time I think about going back, I feel this weight pressing down on my chest. Like I can't breathe. So don't go back. It's not that simple. I have a mortgage, car payments, student loans, Sarah. Ava reached across the table, covering her hand. What would you do if money wasn't an issue? If you could do anything at all? No one had ever asked her that. Sarah sat with the question, really considering it. I want to create things. I don't know if that means art or writing or something else entirely. But I'm tired of just optimizing other people's businesses. I want to make something that's mine. Then do it. Just like that. Just like that. Ava squeezed her hand. It won't be easy. You'll struggle and doubt yourself and wonder if you made a huge mistake. But at least you'll be struggling towards something you actually want. Their food arrived and they ate slowly, talking about everything and nothing. Ava told her about growing up in Portland, about her Filipino mother who'd immigrated in the 70s and taught her that art was a language for things words couldn't express. Sarah talked about her own mother, who died 5 years ago and never got to see her daughter achieve the success she'd always pushed for. Do you think she'd be disappointed? Sarah asked. If she knew I was walking away from it all? Ava considered this carefully. I think if she loved you, she'd want you to be happy. And if she didn't understand that, then her disappointment isn't something you should carry. It was the most liberating thing anyone had ever said to her. They lingered over tiramisu and espresso, neither wanting the night to end. When they finally left the restaurant, it was nearly midnight. They walked slowly back toward the gallery where Sarah had parked. Thank you for coming tonight, Ava said. It meant more than you know. Thank you for inviting me for everything, really. Thursday night, tonight, making me think about things differently. They stopped under a streetlight. Ava was standing close enough that Sarah could see the gold flecks in her brown eyes. The air between them felt charged, electric. Sarah, Ava said softly, Can I ask you something? Anything. Thursday night, when I was showing you the watercolors when I was standing behind you. Did you feel it too? Sarah's heart was pounding. Feel what? This, Ava stepped closer, closing the distance between them. This pull. Like gravity. Sarah couldn't breathe. Yes, I need to know if I'm reading this wrong. If you're not, if you don't, Ava took a shaky breath. I don't want to make you uncomfortable. You're not. The words came out as barely a whisper. I haven't done this before. With a woman. With anyone, really, like this. But yes, I feel it. And it scares me how much I feel it. Ava reached up, gently cupping Sarah's face. Can I kiss you? Sarah nodded, not trusting her voice. The kiss was soft at first, tentative, a question being asked and answered. Then Ava's hand slid into Sarah's hair, and Sarah's hands found Ava's waist. And the kiss deepened into something that felt like falling and flying all at once. When they finally pulled apart, Sarah was trembling. "Wow," Ava laughed, breathless. "Yeah, wow. I should probably tell you that I have no idea what I'm doing." "That's okay. We'll figure it out together." Ava pressed her forehead against Sarah's. "No pressure. No expectations. We can go as slow as you need. What if I don't want to go slow?" "Then we won't." They kissed again, longer this time, and Sarah felt something inside her shift and settle, like a piece of a puzzle finally finding its place. The weeks that followed were a revelation. Sarah and Ava fell into an easy rhythm, coffee dates that turned into long walks, movie nights at Ava's apartment that ended with tangled limbs and whispered confessions, Saturday mornings at the farmer's market buying ingredients for meals they'd cook together. Sarah had never felt so present in her own life. Every moment with Ava was vivid and immediate, stripped of the anxiety that had colored her existence for so long. She learned the geography of Ava's body, the constellation of freckles on her shoulder, the way she hummed while painting, the sound she made when Sarah kissed the soft skin behind her ear. But beneath the euphoria, uncertainty gnawed at her. Sarah had told her therapist about Ava, not everything, but enough. Dr. Palmer had been supportive but cautious, reminding her that major life changes during recovery could be complicated, that she needed to be sure she wasn't just replacing one coping mechanism with another. "Am I?" Sarah had asked. "Are you what?" "Using Ava as an escape, a distraction from dealing with my actual life." Dr. Palmer had given her that steady, considering look. "What do you think?" Sarah didn't know. She only knew that when she was with Ava, she felt real in a way she never had before. 3 weeks into whatever they were calling this, Ava invited her to a dinner party. "Some friends from the art community," she explained. "Very casual, but I'd love for you to meet them." "If you're ready." Sarah felt a flutter of nerves. "As your..." "What exactly?" "As my girlfriend." "If that's what you want to be." The word felt both thrilling and terrifying. Girlfriend. Sarah had never had a girlfriend. Never imagined herself as someone who would. "Yes," she said. "I want that." The dinner party was at a loft in the Arts District, hosted by a sculptor named Marcus and his partner Chen. The space was filled with creative types, painters, writers, a performance artist, a jewelry designer. Everyone was warm and welcoming, and no one seemed fazed by Sarah and Ava's intertwined hands. "So you're the mysterious Sarah," Marcus said, grinning. "Ava's been very secretive about you." "There's nothing mysterious about me," Sarah protested. "She says you're a recovering corporate drone who's discovering her artistic soul." This from Lily, the jewelry designer. Ava flushed. "I didn't say drone." "It's okay," Sarah laughed. "It's pretty accurate." They settled into the living room with plates of food and glasses of wine. The conversation flowed easily, touching on gallery politics, a controversial new public art installation, the challenges of making a living as an artist. Sarah mostly listened, fascinated by their passion and conviction. Then Chen turned to her. "Ava says you're thinking about leaving consulting. What would you do instead?" All eyes turned to Sarah. She felt suddenly exposed, fraudulent. "I don't know yet. I've been exploring different things, pottery, watercolors." "I'm not very good at any of it." "Yet," Ava interjected. "Not very good yet. What calls to you?" Marcus asked. "When you're not thinking about being good or practical, what makes you lose track of time?" Sarah thought about this. "Writing, maybe. I used to write stories when I was younger. Before business school, before consulting. I haven't done it in years, so start again," Lily said simply. "It's not that easy. Why not?" Chen leaned forward. "Look, I get it. I was a corporate lawyer before all this." He gestured at the loft at Marcus. "I thought I needed permission to change my life, a sign from the universe or something. But the truth is, the only permission you need is your own." Marcus nodded. "The hardest part is admitting that the life you built doesn't fit anymore. After that, it's just logistics." Sarah felt tears prickling at her eyes. "But what if I fail? What if I leave everything behind and discover I'm terrible at whatever comes next?" "Then you'll be terrible at something you chose," Ava said softly. "Isn't that better than being miserable at something that was chosen for you?" The conversation moved on, but Sarah sat with those words, turning them over in her mind. Later, helping clean up in the kitchen, Lily pulled her aside. "Can I give you some unsolicited advice?" "Sure." "Don't let fear make your decisions. I know it's scary, especially when you're also navigating a new relationship and figuring out your sexuality and all of it at once. But you're allowed to want things. You're allowed to chase them. How did you know?" "About the sexuality thing?" Lily smiled. "Because I've been there. Thought I was straight until I was 32 and met the woman who became my wife. It's disorienting, right? Like the ground shifted and you're not sure which way is up." "Exactly. It gets easier. You stop questioning it so much. You just let yourself feel what you feel." On the drive home, Ava was quiet, her hand resting on Sarah's thigh as Sarah drove. Finally, she said, "Were you okay tonight? You seemed a little overwhelmed." "I was, but in a good way, mostly." Sarah glanced at her. "Your friends are wonderful. They liked you too. Marcus texted me while we were in the kitchen, said you were a keeper." Sarah's heart swelled. "Yeah." Ava was quiet for a moment. "Sarah, I need to tell you something." The serious tone made Sarah's stomach drop. "What is it? I'm falling for you. Like, really falling. And I know it's fast, and I know you're dealing with a lot, but I needed you to know. I'm not just passing time with you. This is real for me." Sarah pulled into Ava's driveway, put the car in park, and turned to face her. "It's real for me, too. That's what scares me. I've never felt like this about anyone, man or woman. Never felt so completely seen and understood. Then why do you look so sad?" "Because I don't know if I'm ready for this. For you, for everything you make me want to be. What if I'm not brave enough? What if I can't actually blow up my life and start over?" Ava unbuckled her seatbelt and shifted to face Sarah fully. "Then we'll figure it out together. You don't have to have all the answers right now. You don't have to make every decision today." "But, Sarah," Ava took her hand. "Come inside. Stay with me tonight. Stop thinking about tomorrow and just be here now with me." Sarah let herself be led inside, into Ava's cozy apartment with its walls covered in paintings and shelves overflowing with art books. They made tea and curled up on the couch, and Ava put on music, something soft and jazzy. They didn't talk about the future or fear or change. They just existed together in the quiet comfort of the present. Later, in Ava's bed, wrapped in her arms, Sarah whispered into the darkness, "I'm terrified." "Of what?" "Of how happy you make me, of losing this." "Of losing myself." Ava pressed a kiss to her shoulder. "You won't lose yourself. You're just finding parts of yourself you didn't know existed. That's not the same as losing who you were." "How do you know?" "Because I've been there. Because I watched myself transform, and it was terrifying and beautiful and worth every second of uncertainty." Sarah turned to face her, tracing the line of Ava's jaw in the moonlight filtering through the curtains. "Teach me how to be brave. You already are brave. You just don't see it yet." They made love slowly, reverently, and afterwards Sarah cried not from sadness but from the overwhelming intensity of feeling so much all at once. Ava held her through it, stroking her hair, murmuring reassurances. When Sarah finally fell asleep, she dreamed of falling through space. Terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure, never quite sure if she was plummeting or flying. The crisis came on a Tuesday. Sarah's phone rang while she was at Ava's apartment, attempting to paint and mostly just creating muddy browns. It was her boss, Richard, calling from the office. "Sarah, we need to talk about your return date." Her stomach clenched. "I still have 2 more weeks of leave." "I know, and I've been incredibly accommodating about extending it multiple times. But the board is getting antsy. We need to know if you're coming back or if we should start looking for your replacement." The word replacement hit like a slap. Replacement. As if 12 years of her life could be replaced, just like that. "I need more time," she said. "I'm sorry, but we can't wait indefinitely. I need an answer by Friday. Either you're back Monday or we're moving forward without you." He hung up. Sarah sat staring at her phone, paint-stained hands trembling. Ava emerged from her studio, saw Sarah's face. "What happened?" "I have to decide. By Friday, go back to work or quit for real." "Okay." Ava sat beside her. "What do you want to do?" "I don't know." The words came out sharper than she intended. "I don't know, Ava. I don't know anything anymore." "That's not true, isn't it?" 3 months ago, I had a plan, a career, an identity. Now I'm painting terrible watercolors and having an existential crisis and dating a woman, and I don't recognize my own life. Ava flinched. The phrase dating. A woman had come out wrong, like an accusation rather than a fact. I'm sorry, Sarah said immediately. I didn't mean it like that, didn't you? Ava's voice was careful, controlled. Because it sounded like you're lumping me in with all the other scary changes. Like I'm part of your crisis instead of someone who's trying to help you through it. That's not fair, isn't it? Ava stood, putting distance between them. Sarah, I have been patient. I have been understanding. I've watched you spiral and second guess and pull away every time things get too real. But I need to know, am I your girlfriend, or am I just another thing you're trying on to see if it fits? The question hung in the air, sharp and painful. I don't know how to answer that, Sarah admitted. Then maybe that's my answer. Ava walked into her studio and closed the door. Sarah sat alone in the living room, surrounded by half-finished paintings and the ruins of the piece she'd found. She left without saying goodbye. That night, Sarah sat in her own apartment, the sterile, expensive space she barely lived in since meeting Ava, and forced herself to think clearly. What did she actually want? She pulled out her laptop and opened a document. Started writing. Not a business plan or a resignation letter, but a story. About a woman who built a perfect life that felt like a cage. About breaking free and the terror and exhilaration of not knowing what came next. About meeting someone who saw past her carefully constructed facades to the messy, uncertain person underneath. She wrote for hours, words pouring out faster than she could type them. All the fear and confusion and desperate hope she'd been carrying. It wasn't good writing, it was raw and unpolished and probably incomprehensible to anyone else. But it was true. At 3 a.m, she finally understood. She'd been so focused on having all the answers that she'd missed the point entirely. Life wasn't about having the perfect plan. It was about choosing again and again what mattered most. She picked up her phone and called Ava. It rang 4 times before going to voicemail. Ava, it's me. I know it's late, and I know I hurt you. But I need you to know you're not part of my crisis. You're the reason I'm brave enough to even have one. You showed me that breaking can be beautiful. That falling apart can be the first step toward putting yourself back together better. And I love you. I'm terrified and confused, and I have no idea what I'm doing, but I love you. I'm sorry I made you doubt that. Call me when you're ready. She hung up and waited. An hour passed, 2. The sun began to rise, painting her apartment in shades of gold and pink. Her phone stayed silent. Thursday morning, Sarah walked into Richard's office without an appointment. I quit, she said before he could speak. Effective immediately. I'll help transition my accounts, but I'm done. Richard leaned back in his chair, studying her. Are you sure about this? No, but I'm doing it anyway. She spent the day boxing up her office, saying goodbye to colleagues who looked at her like she was insane. Maybe she was. She was walking away from security and prestige and a 6-figure salary to pursue. What exactly? Writing art? A life that fit? It should have felt like falling. Instead, it felt like finally exhaling after holding her breath for years. When she got home, there was a package outside her door. Inside was a painting, one of Ava's. A landscape of a woman standing at the edge of a cliff, looking out at an endless horizon. On the back, Ava had written, "For when you're ready to jump." Sarah called again. This time, Ava answered. Hi, Sarah said, voice shaking. Hi. I quit my job. A pause. Sarah, let me finish. I quit because it was killing me slowly and I'm tired of being afraid. I quit because I want to write and create and figure out who I am when I'm not performing for anyone else. And I quit because I want to be with you, really with you, without all my doubts and fears getting in the way. You didn't have to quit for me. I didn't. I quit for me. But I need you to know that you're part of my future. Part of what I'm choosing. If you still want to be. Another pause, longer this time. Then, come over. Sarah drove across town like her life depended on it. When Ava opened the door, her eyes were red-rimmed but smiling. You're insane, Ava said, completely. You're going to panic about this decision in about 48 hours. Probably. And you're going to be broke and stressed and wondering what the hell you were thinking. Almost. Certainly. Eva pulled her inside, kissing her hard. I'm so proud of you. They ended up on the couch, wrapped around each other, and Sarah told her everything about the writing, the terror, the strange relief of burning her bridges. Eva listened without judgment, just held her and let her be scared and excited and uncertain all at once. What happens now? Sarah asked. Now you figure out what comes next. And I'll be here while you do, even when I'm panicking? Especially then. Sarah buried her face in Ava's neck. I love you. I should have said it properly before. I love you so much it terrifies me. I love you too. Have since that first night with the pottery and the storm. That was only 3 months ago. Sometimes 3 months is enough. They spent the rest of the day together, cooking dinner and talking about the future in vague, optimistic terms. Sarah didn't have a plan yet, didn't know how she'd pay rent or what she'd do with her days. But for the first time in her adult life, that uncertainty felt like possibility instead of failure. 6 months after the night Sarah quit everything. She woke up in Ava's bed, their bed now officially, since she'd moved in 2 months ago, to find Ava already awake. Sketching in the notebook she kept on the nightstand. What are you drawing? Sarah asked sleepily. You always look so peaceful when you sleep. Sarah stretched, reaching for her. Come back to bed. Can't. I have the watercolor class at 9 and you have your writing group at 10. Right, the writing group. Sarah had joined it in January, a collection of aspiring and published authors who met weekly at a coffee shop to share work and offer feedback. At first, she'd been terrified to read her pages aloud. But the group had been encouraging, and slowly, Sarah's confidence had grown. She was working on a novel, now a fictionalized account of a woman's journey from corporate burnout to self-discovery. Her agent, she had an agent, thought it had commercial potential, especially in the wake of the Great Resignation trend. There was no guarantee it would sell, no guarantee of anything really. But Sarah wrote every day anyway, driven by something purer than ambition, the simple need to tell this story. Money was tight. Sarah had burned through most of her savings, picked up freelance editing gigs to make rent, learned to budget in ways her former self would have found humiliating. But she was happier than she'd ever been. I have something to tell you, Ava said, setting down her sketchbook. Sarah sat up, noting the nervousness in Ava's expression. What is it? I got offered a residency. In Italy. 3 months at an artist colony in Tuscany, all expenses paid. Sarah's heart sank even as she forced a smile. Ava, that's amazing. You should absolutely go. It's 3 months. May through July. 3 months. Sarah tried to imagine 3 months without Ava's presence, without waking up next to her, without their easy intimacy. The thought was physically painful. When do you have to decide? Next week. Ava took Sarah's hand. Come with me. What? Come with me. The residency includes housing for partners and families. You could write there. Think about it: mornings writing in an Italian villa, afternoons exploring villages, evenings drinking wine and watching sunsets. We could have an adventure. Sarah wanted to say yes immediately, but practicality reared its head. I can't afford. I'll cover it. I've been saving and I sold 2 paintings last month for more than I expected. I want to do this, Sarah. I want us to do this together. That's too much. I can't let you. Why not? Why can't you let people help you? Why does everything have to be a struggle you face alone? The question hit home. Sarah had been working so hard to prove she could manage, could survive on her own without the safety net of her old career. But maybe that was just another form of the same perfectionism she'd been trying to escape. I'm scared, she admitted. Of what? Of depending on you. Of letting you support me. What if it changes things between us? What if I start to resent you or you start to resent me? Ava cupped her face gently. Sarah, love isn't a transaction. You don't have to earn your place in my life. I want to share this with you because making memories with you makes them better. More vivid. More real. Tears pricked Sarah's eyes. Okay. Let's go to Italy. Let's have an adventure. Ava kissed her and it tasted like promise. The months before they left were a whirlwind. Sarah finished her manuscript and sent it to her agent. Ava prepared for the residency, creating new work and organizing her affairs. They gave notice on the apartment, put most of their things in storage. Sarah felt like she was shedding another skin, becoming someone lighter, less encumbered. Her therapist was supportive but cautious. Make sure you're not running towards something new to avoid dealing with the hard work of building a stable life here. But Sarah didn't think she was running. She thought maybe she was finally learning how to move forward. They arrived in Tuscany in early May, driving through rolling hills covered in cypress trees and vineyards. The artist colony was a converted monastery, all stone walls and terracotta roofs, with studios scattered throughout the grounds and a central villa, where meals were served family style. Their room was simple but beautiful whitewashed walls. A view of the valley, a small desk by the window where Sarah could write. That first night, jet-lagged and exhausted, they made love with the windows open, warm Italian air washing over their skin. "This is real," Sarah whispered afterward. "We're really here. We're really here," Ava confirmed. The days fell into a rhythm. Mornings, Sarah wrote while Ava painted in her studio. Afternoons, they explored nearby villages, churches filled with Renaissance art, markets where they bought fresh bread and cheese and wine. Evenings, they returned to the colony for communal dinners with the other artists, conversations flowing in multiple languages about art and politics and the meaning of beauty. Sarah had never felt so alive. Every sense was heightened, the taste of tomatoes still warm from the sun, the smell of jasmine in the gardens, the sound of church bells echoing across the valley. And always Ava beside her, laughing, creating, fully herself. One afternoon, Sarah received an email from her agent. Her manuscript had sold in a preempt to a major publisher. The advance wasn't huge, but it was enough. Enough to pay back Ava for the trip, to contribute equally to their next apartment, to feel like a real writer instead of someone playing at it. She ran to Ava's studio, bursting in without knocking. "I sold it. They're going to publish my book." Ava dropped her brush, paint splattering across the floor, and threw her arms around Sarah. "I knew it. I knew they would love it." They danced around the studio, laughing and crying, knocking into easels and paint jars. Later, Sarah would worry about whether the book would be successful, whether readers would connect with it, whether she could write another one. But in that moment, she let herself be purely, completely joyful. That night, they climbed to the monastery's highest point, a terrace overlooking the valley. The sun was setting, painting everything in shades of gold and amber. "Remember that first night?" Ava asked. "When you were breaking at the pottery wheel?" "How could I forget? Did you ever imagine we'd end up here?" Sarah thought about that version of herself, exhausted, lost, afraid to admit how desperately unhappy she was. If someone had told her then that in less than a year, she'd be in Italy with a woman she loved, celebrating the sale of a novel she'd written, she would have thought they were insane. "No," she said honestly. "I couldn't have imagined this. I couldn't have imagined you. Are you glad? That you broke? That you let everything fall apart?" Sarah turned to face her fully. The setting sun caught in Ava's dark hair, turned her brown eyes to amber. She was so beautiful it hurt. "I'm grateful," Sarah said. "For all of it. The breaking, the fear, the uncertainty. Because it led me here. To you. To this life I never knew I could have." Ava kissed her. Soft and sweet, and Sarah tasted salt tears, though she wasn't sure whose. "I want to marry you," Ava said when they pulled apart. Sarah's breath caught. "What? Someday?" "Not now, we don't have to rush anything. But someday, when you're ready, I want to marry you. I want forever with you." Sarah had spent so much of her life planning, controlling, trying to predict every outcome. Standing here on this terrace in Italy, with a future as uncertain and full of possibility as the darkening sky, she finally understood what it meant to simply trust in what was being built. "Someday," she agreed. "When we're ready. I want that too." They stayed on the terrace until stars emerged, one by one, filling the sky with light. Sarah thought about all the versions of herself she'd been: the driven consultant, the broken woman at the pottery wheel, the terrified person falling in love for the first time. They were all still there inside her, parts of a complicated whole, but she wasn't breaking anymore. She was becoming. "Come on," Ava said, pulling her toward the stairs. "Let's go celebrate properly." They made their way down through the monastery, past studios glowing with lamplight, past the gardens fragrant with night-blooming flowers. Somewhere in the distance, someone was playing guitar. The notes drifting on the warm breeze. Sarah thought about the book she'd written in, about readers who might someday hold it in their hands and see their own struggles reflected back. She thought about the paintings Ava would create here, the beauty she'd capture and share with the world. She thought about all the uncertain, thrilling days ahead. The future was unwritten. The path was unclear. But Sarah was no longer afraid of not having all the answers. She had this moment. She had this love. She had herself, finally, truly. And it was enough. It was everything. Sarah stood in the bookstore, staring at the display table. 24 copies of her novel, covers facing out, her name printed beneath the title, When Night Falls by Sarah Mitchell. Still surreal? Ava asked, sliding an arm around her waist. Completely. The book had done well, not a bestseller, but solid sales, good reviews, a small but devoted readership. More importantly, it had opened doors. Sarah had a contract for a second novel, teaching gigs at writing conferences. A life built on words and stories and the slow, patient work of creation. Ava's career had flourished too. The residency in Italy had led to gallery shows in New York and Los Angeles. She was teaching full-time now at the local university, mentoring young artists the way she'd once mentored Sarah. They'd bought a small house together. Nothing fancy, with a garden and room for Ava's studio and Sarah's office. They'd gotten married on the beach last summer, a simple ceremony with close friends, Lily officiating. Sarah still wore the ring, a simple silver band, twisting it absently when she was thinking. Ready? Ava asked. People are starting to arrive. It was Sarah's first official book reading, and she was terrified. But it was the good kind of terrified now, the kind that came with anticipation rather than dread. They walked to the reading area together. The chairs were filling up. Friends, former colleagues who'd followed her journey with varying degrees of amusement, students from Ava's classes, strangers who'd found the book and wanted to meet the author. Sarah took her seat at the front, Ava settling into the audience. Their eyes met, and Ava gave her an encouraging nod. Sarah opened the book to the marked passage and began to read. She met her while she was breaking. On a Thursday night when rain hammered the windows and the world felt like it was ending. She didn't know then that breaking was the only way to become whole. That sometimes you have to lose yourself completely to find out who you really are. Her voice grew stronger as she read, telling the story of a woman's transformation, of love found in unexpected places, of the courage it takes to choose uncertainty over safety. When she finished, there was a moment of silence. Then applause, warm and genuine. During the Q&A, someone asked, "Is this story autobiographical?" Sarah smiled, glancing at Ava. "The details are fiction, but the truth of it is real. Sometimes we build lives that look perfect from the outside but feel empty inside. And sometimes the bravest thing we can do is admit that and start over." What would you say to someone who's afraid to make that kind of change? Another person asked. Sarah thought about her answer carefully. "I'd say that fear is a compass, not a stop sign. It points us toward what matters most. And I'd say that you don't have to have all the answers before you begin. You just have to take the first step, and then the next one, and trust that the path will reveal itself." After the reading, people lined up for signed books. Sarah personalized each one, writing messages of encouragement, hearing fragments of their stories. A woman in her 50s who just left a 20-year career in banking. A college student questioning everything about the future she'd planned. A man who'd recently come out to his family. Each story reminded Sarah of where she'd been, how far she'd traveled. Finally, the crowd dispersed. Sarah and Ava walked home through evening streets, hand in hand. "I'm proud of you," Ava said. "You were amazing tonight. I was terrified." "I know. But you did it anyway. That's what bravery looks like." They reached their house, and Sarah paused on the front steps, looking up at the warm light glowing in the windows. Their home. Their life. Everything they built together from the wreckage of what came before. "Thank you," Sarah said. "For what?" "For seeing me when I couldn't see myself. For believing I could do this when I had no idea what I was doing. For being patient while I figured it out." Ava kissed her gently. "You did the hard part. I just held your hand while you were brave." Inside, they made tea and curled up on the couch. Sarah's laptop sat on the coffee table, A new document already opened the first chapter of her next novel. What's this one about? Ava asked, reading over her shoulder. A painter who teaches someone to see color differently. Who shows them that breaking can be beautiful. Ava laughed. Write what you know? Always. They sat in comfortable silence, Ava sketching while Sarah typed. Outside, night fell softly over their neighborhood, streetlights flickering on one by one. Somewhere in the city, someone else was breaking, struggling. Wondering if they had the courage to change their life, Sarah hoped they would find it. Hoped they would discover, as she had, that the most terrifying thing letting everything fall apart could also be the most transformative. She leaned into Ava's warmth, feeling her steady heartbeat and kept writing.